Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous video, my supervisor asked me to give a lecture to a class about Dr. Martin Luther King. So I started a little bit with slavery. I talked about Jim Crow laws. I talked about Dr. Martin Luther King, his life, Rosa Parks, nonviolent resistant tactics, the Greensboro lunch counter sit-ins, a tiny bit about Malcolm X and the Black Power movement, and Dr. King's assassination, his "I Have a Dream" speech, and yeah, it was really cool. It was a gift for me to be able to do that and to teach them. And they had heard of some of these things, and I think it was really cool too because, like I said, a lot of my all of my students are Korean, and they're either from Korea, living in Indonesia, or they're first generation Korean Indonesians. So they could relate, they could relate to being, bullied and terrorized on some level because of who they are. One student, he shared that he was the only Korean in his high school at one point. And he said, sometimes he would be called derogatory names and treated differently. And, so I asked him, well, how did you handle that? And, how did that make you feel? And so he shared, he just said, well, I would ignore it, most of the times. And I wouldn't he wouldn't fight fire with fire. And I told them some stories. I mean, I went to predominantly white grade school and high school. I wasn't necessarily like the only black person in my class, in grade school, but I would be one of maybe two or three. And even though growing up, I had a lot of white friends, and we'd go over each other's houses, and I played sports on the volleyball team, and so we spent a lot of time together. There would still be incidents, where people would use like a racial slur or say some racist stereotype or something like that. And I mean, even though on a whole, I think things were fine, growing up, considering. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, sometimes, I would think these people were my friends, and then all of a sudden, someone would make a comment, and you're sitting there like, hey, wait a minute. And, I told him, I said, yeah, sometimes I'd ignore it. Sometimes I would kind of just not know really, I mean, what do you do when you're kind of the only person there at the time? Yeah, and then there were times where I did go off or I'd be, upset. So that's why I think it's good to present both sides. If my supervisor will allow me to, I'd like to give a talk and talk a little bit about Malcolm X and kind of the Black Power movement and those ideas, because I think it's very natural, to look at both sides of that, because during that time it wasn't like there was this consensus of every black person in the United States that this is how we should handle things. No. I mean, naturally, when you're growing up under, an oppressive system, and, and when I say oppressive and terrorizing, not just people being terrorizing, but the laws, the policies being terrorizing, not having recourse, not being able to call the police, not being able to bring a lawsuit, not being able to defend yourself, without, for fear of, retribution from the community, from law enforcement. So it's totally natural that there was a group of people and segment that was, like, yeah, let's get it popping. Let me get my gun. Let's have the black people be over here. The white people be over there, and let's, take care of our own and handle things ourselves. Totally natural response. So that's why I think it's important for them to understand both ideologies, and I want them to be able to eventually maybe write an essay and be able to compare and contrast, both leaders, both movements. And I think it's important too, because we did this exercise with another class, And these students, I asked them, if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be and why, and how would you use it? And it was interesting because I would say about a quarter of them, their superpower related to making things better with North and South Korea. So I just think it's good that these children will at least have an opportunity to think about these things, because they're going to be going out into the world and becoming future leaders. And I think a lot of times, at least when I was in school, in textbooks, they would focus so much on war, like in history class. You study all these wars every year, and it doesn't present a balanced viewpoint, because there are a lot of case studies and situations where peaceful conflict, resolution tactics were used to avoid conflict. So that was just really cool. That was just really interesting. Like I said, it was a gift for me to be able to even share that information with them, and I'd love to be able to do more things like that. So that was one thing that was really amazing. And then the second is I met a woman who's also a blogger, and she's Jamaican, and she used to live in New York City. And we met each other like through a friend of a friend, that kind of thing, via Facebook and via Matador U, and which is a travel online, university that I was part of, and she was part of too. So anyway, she's been coming to Indonesia, I don't know for how long or what, but she likes Indonesia a lot, and she finally moved here, and she teaches English, and we both live in the same area. We haven't had a chance to meet physically yet, but we've been communicating on Facebook, and she always gives me like great advice and resources and like a tremendous support leading up to the trip and since I've been here. But yeah, I can't wait to meet her. She sounds really interesting and nice, and I know she knows a lot about the country. And I'll probably interview her and share her blog and everything else. But anyway, she invited me to go with her next Sunday to this restaurant bar where a lot of expats go, and we're going to go and watch the Olympic Games. So I'm guessing it might be something that Jamaicans are really good at. I don't know if it's like soccer or bobsledding, or maybe it'll be track like Usain Bolt, or or something like that. So we're going to catch some of the games over there. So I'll be able to, be my USA, support my country. But anyway, apparently there's a lot of expats here from Australia, New Zealand, England, France, India. So that'll be cool to kind of, check out that whole community. In fact, the place that we're going it's in my Lonely Planet, Southeast Asia on a Shoestring. So it's in this book. So it's probably like a really popular spot. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, even though Indonesia is there's a lot of poverty here. Sorry, I thought I lost you guys. Even though there's a lot of poverty here, there's definitely something going on with the wealth, because there's certain things you see, whether they're stores or whether there are a lot of like westernized, type things that are here that are catering and targeting wealthy people. And so I don't know. I have to figure out. I heard somewhere that Indonesia is in the top 10 places that wealthy people hide some of their money. And so that's interesting. So I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, it'll be cool to find out what's going on in the expat community. I do belong to this, it's an online network of expats from around the world. And I joined it before I came to Indonesia. And you like choose which country or which city that you're going to be in. And then it like opens up this door to all these other expats. So I've been communicating with people. I haven't been to any of their events yet. They have like events every month, but they're professionals. There's people who work for like the World Health Organization, tech firms, global consulting firms, oil companies. So I don't know. It's definitely another demographic of people here too. So that'll be interesting. So I'll keep you guys posted, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We're only about 10 days in, so we have a lot of time for things to unfold. And subscribe to the channel and go to the website mawuangels.com if you want to connect with Mawu Angels via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. You know, if you're into social media, all the little social media buttons are there. So drop me a line, drop some comments down below, ask questions, and yeah, thanks for joining me on this journey. All right, mawuangels.com. Thanks.